I am a single father residing in a small town in Texas. My employment at the local warehouse provides a steady income, though it frequently requires late hours, particularly on weekends. I have a 5-year-old son named Tommy, a sweet and energetic child. On the evening of Friday, March 28th, 2025, I decided to take Tommy to the nearby Walmart to purchase milk and a few treats as a reward for his good behavior throughout the week. It was approximately 9 p.m. The store was not overly crowded, with only a few scattered shoppers. The echo of footsteps on the tile floor mingled with the faint hum of background music from the overhead speakers. Our home is approximately 2 miles from the Walmart, a store I frequent for its reasonable prices and convenient location. I drove there in my old Ford, parking near the main entrance about 50 yards from the door. Tommy sat in the back seat, excitedly chattering about the toys he hoped to see. As we entered, the harsh white fluorescent lights stung my eyes, but Tommy paid no mind, dashing toward the center aisles. I instructed him to slow down, and we proceeded to the grocery section to retrieve the milk. The grocery section was located on the left side of the store, a few dozen yards from the entrance. I stopped at the refrigerated section, scanning the milk cartons. Tommy stood beside me, but moments later, he tugged on my sleeve and asked, "Dad, can I go to the toy aisle? It's right over there." The toy aisle was approximately 2 aisles away near the back corner of the store. I hesitated briefly, but seeing the quiet store and Tommy's eagerness, I nodded. "All right, but stay put. I'll be right over after I grab the milk," I said. He grinned and sprinted off, his small sneakers making soft tapping sounds. I turned back to the milk, searching for the low-fat variety Tommy preferred. I believe I took no more than 2 or 3 minutes, but as I picked up a carton to check the expiration date, I heard a low voice from the toy aisle. It was not loud, but it was clear. "Come on, go with me and I'll buy you that robot." My heart pounded. I dropped the milk carton, heedless of whether it fell, and ran toward Tommy. When I reached the toy aisle, my heart skipped a beat. Tommy was there, holding a blue robot toy, but he was not alone. In front of him stood a man, approximately 5 feet 10 inches tall, wearing a dark red hoodie with the hood pulled low, almost completely obscuring his face. I could not see his eyes clearly, but his slightly hunched posture toward Tommy sent a chill down my spine. "Tommy!" I yelled, my voice echoing in the quiet aisle. He turned to me, and the man looked up. I rushed over, grabbed Tommy's hand, and pulled him behind me. "Who are you? What did you just say to my son?" I demanded, my voice firm but trembling. The man straightened up, and I finally saw his eyes, cold, almost empty. He did not answer immediately, merely staring at me. After a few silent seconds, he mumbled, "I was just kidding. Don't get so worked up." His voice lacked any warmth, sounding dry and challenging. "Kidding? Telling my son to go with you is a joke?" I took a step forward, keeping Tommy behind me. He glared, his face contorting with anger. "What do you want?" he growled, his hands clenching into fists. Adrenaline surged through me, and I prepared to confront him if he attacked. Just then, the steady sound of footsteps echoed from the end of the aisle. 2 Walmart employees in blue vests, one pushing a stock cart, appeared. They seemed oblivious to the situation, glancing at us before continuing their conversation about work schedules. The man turned his head toward them, then abruptly walked away, striding quickly toward the end of the aisle and disappearing behind the towering shelves. I stood there, panting, still gripping Tommy's hand tightly. "Dad, he told me to go get the robot," Tommy whispered, his voice trembling. I bent down, hugged him, and said, "It's okay, son. I'm here. Let's go home." I no longer cared about the milk or anything else. I simply wanted to leave as quickly as possible. I led Tommy toward the main exit, still holding his hand, the other hand clutching the bag of groceries. As we stepped into the parking lot, it was completely dark, illuminated only by a few flickering streetlights. I felt another chill, not from the weather but from an eerie sensation, as if someone were watching us. I glanced around, trying to remain calm for Tommy's sake. Then I saw him. He stood approximately 20 yards from my car, near an old gray pickup truck. In his hand, he held a long iron pipe, likely scavenged from somewhere in the parking lot. He did not speak, merely walked toward us, each step slow but menacing. Under the dim lights, his eyes resembled those of a predator. "Run, Tommy!" I yelled, scooping him up and rushing toward the car. I heard the man's footsteps quickening behind us, the metal scraping against the ground with each terrifying beat. I yanked open the car door, practically throwing Tommy into the back seat, then jumped into the driver's seat. My hands trembled as I fumbled with the keys. The groceries I had purchased, a carton of milk and a few small toys, spilled onto the ground as I slammed the door shut. I started the engine, glancing in the rearview mirror. He was close, just a few yards away, but as I sped out of the parking spot, he stopped. In the mirror, I saw him bend down, pick up the items I had dropped, and turn back toward his truck. I did not pause to think. I drove out of the parking lot, my heart pounding. Tommy sat silently in the back seat, his eyes wide with fear. I did not drive straight home, uncertain if the man was following us. Instead, I headed to a gas station approximately 3 miles away, brightly lit and populated by a few people. I parked, checked to ensure Tommy was unharmed, and pulled out my phone to call the police. I recounted the entire incident to the officer on the line, the confrontation in the store, the man's menacing gaze, and the iron pipe in the parking lot. I described him as wearing a red hoodie approximately 5 feet 10 inches tall, with a thin build and an obscured face. I also provided the Walmart's location and the time of the incident. The officer informed me that they would send someone to investigate and advised me to drive home carefully. I remained in the car for a few more minutes, holding Tommy close to reassure him before returning to my apartment. 2 days later, on Sunday morning, I received a call from the local police department. They informed me that they had apprehended a man matching my description at the same Walmart. He was a known petty thief in the area, often stealing items from the store and collecting items customers dropped in the parking lot. He had no history of violence, but the police suspected he might have been attempting to intimidate me to obtain more items. They found the iron pipe in his truck, along with several other items, including the robot toy Tommy had been holding. Although he was apprehended, I could not shake the unease. I reassured myself that he was merely an opportunistic thief, not something more dangerous. But his eyes in the toy aisle and the sound of his footsteps in the parking lot continued to haunt me. From that day forward, I never returned to that Walmart at night. Whenever I took Tommy out, I kept him within arm's reach, never letting him out of my sight for a second. My name is Emily Carter. I am 25 years old and reside in a small town on the outskirts of Ohio. I am employed at an advertising agency with a standard 5-day workweek schedule, but my true passion lies in self-care, both mental and physical. After work, I typically visit the gym near my office for a workout. I prefer wearing form-fitting, comfortable workout attire that remains stylish. Black leggings, a sporty crop top, and pristine white sneakers. On the day in question, after completing my workout around 5 p.m., I decided to stop by Walmart on my way home to purchase groceries. I live alone in a small apartment approximately 2 miles from the supermarket. Walmart is my preferred store due to its affordable prices and reliable fresh produce. It was early February when I pulled into the Walmart parking lot. I stepped out of my car, still dressed in my slightly sweaty gym clothes, my high ponytail somewhat disheveled. I did not think much of my appearance. It was merely a quick post-workout shopping trip, like any other. I pushed my cart through the entrance, heading directly to the fresh produce section to select vegetables and meat for dinner. The store was not overly crowded, with only a few scattered shoppers and the soft hum of background music from the overhead speakers. As I stood at the vegetable counter, debating between spinach and kale, a figure suddenly appeared beside me. I turned to see an older man, perhaps around 50 years old, heavyset, wearing a worn brown jacket and faded jeans. His gray hair was disheveled and appeared unwashed. His face was smooth, but his small eyes, peering through cheap wire-rimmed glasses, made me uneasy. He offered a forced smile, revealing yellowed teeth, and spoke in a gravelly voice. "Hello, ma'am. I'm Frank Dawson. I'm a senior manager here. Do you have a moment to provide some feedback on the store?" I was slightly surprised but nodded politely, assuming it was a routine survey from a Walmart employee, despite his lack of the signature blue vest. He began with basic questions. "How old are you? Do you shop here often?" I responded briefly, 25, and yes, I come here a few times a week. He nodded, pulled an old-looking phone from his pocket, and scribbled something down. I paid little attention, continuing to select vegetables. However, his questions soon shifted. "Do you usually shop alone, or do you have company?" he asked, his tone steady, but his eyes fixed on me. I began to feel uncomfortable, but answered, "Usually alone." He smiled, but it was not a friendly smile, more probing. "What's your car's license plate number? Do you live nearby? Do you live alone or with family?" The barrage of questions halted me. I glanced at him, striving to remain calm, but unease crept in. "Do you have a phone number? I need it for the report," he continued, his fingers tapping on his phone screen. I hesitated. My instincts signaled something was amiss, but I wished to avoid rudeness. 5550123. I rattled off a fake number, attempting to sound casual. He nodded, recorded it, and then asked, "Are you going out tonight? If you're free, I could buy you coffee." His tone now carried an odd edge, as if making an offer I could not refuse. An invisible pressure weighed on me. My heart raced, and I knew I needed to extricate myself from the situation. "I'll have to see," I mumbled, pulling out my phone and quickly texting my friend Sarah, "Call me right now." Less than 30 seconds later, my phone rang. I pretended to answer, "Hello, Sarah? Yeah, I'm at Walmart. Okay, I'll be right there." I turned to him, forcing a smile. "Sorry, I'm busy. My friend just called. I have to go." Without waiting for his reaction, I pushed my cart toward the checkout, my pace quickening. At the self-checkout area, I scanned my items rapidly. A pack of chicken, some greens, and a water bottle. As I scanned, I glanced over my shoulder and froze. He was standing at the end of a nearby aisle, approximately 20 feet away, his eyes still fixed on me. He was not shopping or doing anything, just standing there, watching. A cold sensation ran down my spine. I turned to the employee at the register, a young woman whose name tag read Lisa, and asked quietly, "Excuse me, is that man a senior manager here?" He said his name is Frank Dawson. Lisa frowned, looking in the direction I indicated. "Frank Dawson? No, I've never heard that name. We don't have a manager by that name." She hesitated, then added, "He's not even wearing a uniform. Are you okay?" I shook my head, struggling to keep my voice steady. "Not really. He was asking me some weird questions." Lisa nodded, appearing concerned, but I could not wait any longer. I scanned my final item, placed it in my bag, and hurried away from the register. In the parking lot, I walked quickly toward my gray Honda Civic, parked in the middle of the lot about 50 yards from the exit. Dim streetlights illuminated the few remaining cars, mostly employee vehicles. In my haste, I accidentally dropped the chicken pack on the ground. I bent down to retrieve it, but a large hand reached it first. I looked up and nearly screamed. It was him, Frank, standing right next to me, offering a twisted smile, his yellowed teeth visible under the light. "Here, you drop this. No need to rush. If you're free, would you like to go out with me?" I froze, striving to remain calm. "No, thank you," I replied, my voice trembling. "I have plans with my friend at home." I snatched the chicken pack from his hand, turned, and jumped into my car, locking the doors immediately. In the rearview mirror, I saw him still standing there, smiling. I started the engine and pulled out of the parking lot as quickly as possible, my heart pounding. On the way home, I continually checked the rearview mirror, fearing he was following me. Thankfully, no suspicious vehicles appeared behind me. When I reached my apartment complex, I parked in a secluded corner, waited a few minutes to ensure no one was following, and then entered my apartment. That night, I lay in bed, unable to sleep, my mind racing. What would have happened if I had provided my real information? If he had my actual phone number or address, would he have sought me out? My instincts had spared me from a situation I dared not imagine. Since that day, I have altered my shopping habits entirely. I no longer visit Walmart in my form-fitting gym clothes. Instead, I opt for baggy hoodies and old jeans, striving to appear as inconspicuous as possible. Moreover, I began asking Sarah or another friend to accompany me whenever I needed to shop alone. I never saw the man who called himself Frank Dawson again, but each time I entered Walmart, I could not help but glance over my shoulder, fearing that his small eyes and twisted smile would reappear from some hidden corner in the aisles. My name is Daniel Carter. I am employed as a security guard at a Walmart in Ohio. a part-time position I began 3 years ago to supplement my income. My shift is typically the night shift from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., and I spend most of my time in the camera surveillance room, monitoring screens to ensure no unusual activity occurs after the store closes. The role is not physically demanding, but requires concentration, particularly during the late hours when the store's silence becomes heavy, almost suffocating. On the night in question, a Wednesday around 3 a.m. on September 1st, 2024, the store had been closed since 11 p.m. It was just me and a few other night shift colleagues, each stationed in separate areas. I sat in the camera surveillance room, a small space illuminated by the faint blue light of the monitors. To pass the time during the long empty hours, I occasionally played a simple game on my phone, a habit no one objected to, provided I kept an eye on the screens. That night, I was engrossed in my game when I suddenly felt thirsty. I set my phone down and stood to retrieve a water bottle from the small fridge in the corner of the room. As I turned, my eyes inadvertently scanned the camera monitors. On one screen, displaying the electronics section, I noticed something unusual: three blurred figures moving between the shelves under the dim fluorescent light. I frowned and stepped closer to the screen for a better look. The figures wore black hoodies with their heads covered, and each appeared to hold a long, shiny object. From the camera angle, I could not identify the objects precisely, perhaps knives or small metal baseball bats, but it was evident they were not part of the night shift crew. They were quietly rifling through the shelves, clearly searching for high-value items such as wireless headphones, Bluetooth speakers, or other easily portable goods suitable for resale. My heart raced. I could not comprehend how they had entered. The store had been securely locked for 4 hours, and the alarm system had not been triggered. I wondered if they had broken a lock or discovered an undetected entrance, but there was no time for speculation. Confronting them directly would have been unwise. Three armed individuals against me alone would not yield a favorable outcome. I immediately grabbed the walkie-talkie and contacted my colleagues stationed at the warehouse and main entrance areas. "This is Daniel. There are three intruders in the electronics section. They're armed. Knives or metal bats, I'm not sure. Can you provide backup?" I strove to keep my voice calm, but the tension was evident. Mike, a colleague in the warehouse, responded promptly. "Three people? Definitely not employees, right? I'm on my way. Call the police, Daniel." I nodded, though he could not see me, and dialed 911. The dispatcher confirmed that a patrol car would be dispatched, but indicated it would take at least 15 minutes to arrive, a significant duration in such a situation. In the meantime, I and four other colleagues, 5 security guards in total, decided to gather in the surveillance room to monitor the situation via the cameras. Direct confrontation was not prudent while we were unarmed and the police had not yet arrived. On the monitor, the three intruders moved more quickly. They seized valuable items, several pairs of high-end headphones and an expensive portable speaker, stuffed them into their backpacks, and began heading toward the emergency exit at the back of the electronics section. I switched camera angles to observe closely. One of them used the shiny object in his hand, now clearly a knife, to pry open the door's lock. The lock shook under the pressure, then popped open after several forceful stabs. That was their entry point, an inconspicuous emergency exit without a direct alarm connected to the main system. "They're breaking out through the emergency exit," I announced over the walkie-talkie. "They've got the goods. If we don't act now, they'll escape." Mike responded urgently. "Daniel, we can't let them get away. The cops aren't here yet. Let's cut them off at the door." I hesitated. The prospect of facing three armed men sent a chill down my spine, but allowing them to escape with the merchandise and potentially return was unacceptable. The 5 of us, Mike, myself, and 3 other guards, swiftly left the surveillance room, running down the main aisle toward the emergency exit at the back of the electronics section. When we arrived, the door was wide open, leading to the dark parking lot behind the store. The three dark figures stood just a few meters away. Under the dim parking lot lights, I saw them more clearly. All three were tall, wearing black hoodies and masks covering their faces. 2 held knives, and the third gripped a short, shiny metal bat. The atmosphere grew tense as they turned upon hearing our footsteps. One of them yelled hoarsely, "Back off, unless you want to die." Before I could react, the man in the middle pulled a black object from his pants, a handgun. A flash of light glinted from the barrel as he pointed it toward us. "I'll shoot if you don't back off," he growled, his hand trembling slightly, but his eyes, visible through the mask slits, were cold. "Back off!" I shouted to my colleagues, pushing Mike aside. "They have a gun. Don't risk it." Their aggression convinced me they would not hesitate to attack if cornered. The five of us retreated, creating distance. The three intruders rushed out, running toward a black van already running in the corner of the parking lot. Through the headlights, I briefly glimpsed another figure in the driver's seat, a fourth accomplice, evidently waiting for their escape. The van roared to life, tires screeching on the pavement, and they vanished into the darkness within seconds. Bạn cần tôi làm gì thêm với đoạn này? Dick, Ching Sua, Tom Tut, hay phát triển tiếp?